They didn't invite you, they stopped checking on you. Your name slowly vanished from their mouths. And you started to wonder if you were ever worth remembering. But what if I told you? Being forgotten is the best thing that ever happened to you. Because when the world goes silent, that's when your true training begins. I wasn't made in the spotlight. I was forged in exile, alone, unseen, uncelebrated. And that's exactly where I became dangerous. They didn't turn their backs on me. They didn't leave me behind. I walked away, not because I was weak, but because the noise of the world was drowning out my own thoughts. Too many voices, too many opinions, too many people trying to tell me who I should be. I didn't want to be seen anymore. I wanted to see myself. So I stepped into the silence. On purpose. It wasn't a retreat. It was a return to something deeper, to something real, to me. People thought I was broken. They said he disappeared. He must have failed. But I didn't disappear to escape. I disappeared to prepare. Because the truth is, a warrior doesn't ask for attention. He doesn't post his pain for sympathy. He doesn't shout over the crowd just to feel heard. He walks alone, quietly, deliberately, into the wilderness of his own mind. And in that silence, something started to change. At first it was uncomfortable. No distractions, no applause, no one to clap for me when I pushed myself. Just me, and the sound of my own breathing. Me, and every doubt I never dealt with. But I stayed. And the longer I stayed, the more the noise started to fade. The pressure, the comparisons, the fake expectations, gone. And what was left was clarity. A clear voice inside me. One I hadn't heard in years. A voice that didn't beg to fit in. A voice that didn't sound like anyone else. A voice that said, "You don't need them. You just need you." That's when I knew. You don't become dangerous by fighting to be seen in crowds. You become dangerous by vanishing, by disappearing into the shadows, and training in silence until the world forgets you, and then wonders how they ever lived without you. They didn't abandon me. I left them to become someone they could never ignore again. In that silence, I came face to face with something no fight ever prepared me for. Not an opponent, not a critic, not even the weight of the world. I came face to face with myself. You see, when the world goes quiet, all the voices you've been ignoring come rushing in. The regrets you buried, the fears you laughed off, the mistakes you thought you'd outrun. They don't vanish. They wait for you, in the quiet, in the stillness. And when there's no audience to impress, when there's no camera to smile at, you can't hide anymore. I met the younger version of me, the one who got angry too fast, the one who felt like he had something to prove to everyone, the one who wore strength like a mask just to hide the parts that still hurt. I sat with him, I listened to him, and I forgave him. Because I realized I wasn't running from the world. I was running from the unhealed pieces of my own soul. And silence, true silence, doesn't let you escape that. It locks the door. It forces you to look in the mirror and ask, who are you without the fight? Who are you without the fame? Who are you when there's nothing left to perform? That's where most people break. But I didn't break. I listened. I felt the pain I never let myself feel. I grieved the moments I pretended didn't matter. I faced the people I never got closure from. Not in real life, but in my mind. And one by one, I let them go. That's when I learned you can train your body every day, But if you never heal your mind, you'll stay chained to ghosts that no one else can see. In Exile, I set them free. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with awareness. Because when you finally understand your ghosts, they stop haunting you, and they start teaching you. You don't become dangerous by escaping your past. You become dangerous by owning it, by learning how to walk through the battlefield of your own memories and come out stronger, not colder. So if you feel haunted right now, if you feel like silence is attacking you, maybe it's not trying to hurt you. Maybe it's trying to free you. I didn't go into the silence to lose myself. I went there to meet myself. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what I found. People think the hardest thing I ever trained was my body. The speed, the kicks, the punches, but they're wrong. The hardest thing I ever trained was my mind. Because your body will do whatever you tell it. But your mind talks back. It argues, it doubts, it rebels. It whispers things in the dark like, you're not good enough. You'll fail again. Why even try? And if you don't train it, it owns you. So I made a decision. Not to master the martial arts first, but to master my thoughts. I locked myself in silence. No distractions. No noise. No opinions. Just repetition. Mental repetition. You see, the mind is like a wild animal. It doesn't listen just because you want it to. It listens when you train it, feed it discipline, starve it from comfort. Every day, I confronted it. When it said, stop, I kept going. When it said, you're tired, I asked, are you finished? When it said, take the easy way, I took one more step into the fire. I broke the cycle of fear by doing the thing I feared, again and again and again, and slowly. My mind bent. It stopped speaking the language of weakness. It started speaking the language of warriors. Not I can't, but let's see how far I can go. Not what if I fail, but what if I become unbreakable? Because here's the truth. You'll never be stronger than your mind. You can fake strength in front of others, but alone, in the quiet, your thoughts will either become your best weapon or your worst enemy. I trained until my mind didn't resist the pain. It welcomed it until pressure didn't stress me. It focused me. My thoughts became tools. My fears became fuel. And my doubt, it turned into fire. Most people give up when their mind says, that's enough. But I trained until mine said, that's not even close. I don't fight to win anymore. I fight to evolve. Because the moment your mind obeys you, you stop surviving. And you start commanding your life like a true master. The world forgot me. They stopped calling. They stopped asking and they stopped watching. It was like I never existed. At first, it felt like punishment. Like I had done something wrong. Like maybe I had nothing left to offer. And for a moment, I believed it. I questioned everything. Was I past my prime? Was I being replaced? Was this the end? But then came the silence. No messages, no expectations, no pressure to perform. Just silence. And in that stillness, I heard something I hadn't heard in years. My own heartbeat. The rhythm of the real me. I realized I hadn't been forgotten. I had been freed. Freed from people who only celebrated the surface. Freed from conversations that drained me. Freed from being Bruce Lee, the symbol. So I could return to being Bruce Lee, the man. People think winning is loud, that it's clapping and praise and trophies. But real winning? Real winning happens in the dark. It happens when no one sees the work, when no one claps for your progress, when you grow anyway. Every morning, I trained like the world was watching, even though it wasn't. Every breath, I sharpened my focus like I had something to prove, even though no one was asking, because I didn't need applause anymore. I needed alignment. I needed peace. I needed power without noise. I discovered the kind of growth that only happens in shadows, the kind of strength that doesn't ask to be admired. It commands respect through presence alone. I was no longer performing. I was transforming. Each day, I became more quiet, more intentional, more lethal in my focus. And here's the secret. When the world forgets you, you stop trying to keep up. You stop chasing relevance. You stop clinging to who you used to be. You start asking different questions. Not, how do I get back in? But what was I doing this for in the first place? Not, who still believes in me? But, do I believe in me enough to go all in with no one watching? And when you can answer yes, that's when you've won. That's when the silence becomes your sparring partner. That's when the absence becomes your edge. You learn to sharpen your instincts. You learn to trust your path. You learn that solitude isn't weakness. It's power most people will never taste, because most people panic when they're forgotten. But I didn't panic. I prepared. I prepared for the moment when I would walk back into the world, not as someone begging for recognition, but as someone who had become undeniable, without ever needing to say a word. The world forgot me, but I never forgot my mission. And that's why I started winning. Not because I was seen, but because I became someone so sharp, so focused, so real, that even in silence, my presence was felt. So if they've stopped checking on you, stopped inviting you, stopped applauding you, let them. Because what you're building right now in the shadows, it's the most dangerous, most pure version of you. And when you're ready to return, they won't recognize you. They'll feel your presence in the room and whisper, where did he go? And what did he become? I didn't need a crowd. I didn't need praise. I didn't need another technique or title. What I needed was the one thing no one wants to face: my own reflection. When the lights went out and the cheers faded, I found myself standing in front of a mirror, not to pose, but to witness. At first, I saw strength, defined muscles, discipline, focus. The surface looked sharp, unshakable. But mirrors don't care about surfaces. They strip you down to your truth. So I stood still, and I stared. And little by little, the cracks appeared. I saw tired eyes, eyes that had fought too many invisible battles, eyes that looked strong in public, but carried silent exhaustion in private. I saw the armor I wore, not to protect myself, but to hide myself. I saw a man who had been fighting his whole life, but forgot why he started. That's when the real lesson began. The mirror didn't speak. It didn't instruct. It didn't comfort. It just asked one brutal question with its silence. Are you proud of who you've become when no one is watching? And I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure. I thought strength was about control, about image, about dominance. But in that still moment, I learned true strength is about surrendering to the truth and choosing to grow from it. So I stood there longer. I scanned every part of myself. Not just my body, my mind, my motives, my memories. And I saw things I'd buried deep. The way I chased perfection, not out of passion, but out of fear of being ordinary. The way I trained harder, not always for discipline, but because I didn't know how to sit alone with my thoughts. The way I smiled in public, but stayed haunted at night by a voice that whispered, "You're still not enough." And that's when the mirror changed. It wasn't my enemy anymore. It became my sparring partner. The one opponent I could never escape. The one who didn't care about my legacy, only my honesty. I began showing up to the mirror like it was a battlefield. Every morning, every night, not to flex, but to face myself. Did you waste time today? Did you move with purpose? Did you train your mind with the same hunger you trained your body? The mirror kept me humble. It showed me where I slacked. It reminded me that greatness isn't a moment. It's a decision, made again and again, even when no one's looking. And slowly, I started to like the man looking back at me. Not because he was perfect, but because he was real. No masks, no lies, no shortcuts. Just truth. Earned, fought for, owned. That's what made me dangerous. Not the speed of my hands, but the stillness in my eyes. Because once you win the war inside the mirror, the world has nothing left it can use against you. You're no longer seeking approval. You're no longer moved by flattery or fear. You're grounded, built from silence, forged in truth. So if you ever feel lost, if your motivation is slipping, if your identity is shaking, go stand in front of the mirror, strip away the noise, and ask the hardest question of all. Is this someone I would follow into battle? If not, good. Because now, your training begins. They didn't just hurt me. They tested the limits of what a man can carry in silence. You know what it feels like to be betrayed by someone you trusted with your soul? To be smiled at in public and destroyed in private? I do. You know what it feels like to have your dreams laughed at, your devotion misunderstood, your heart weaponized against you? I've felt all of it, but I didn't let it poison me. I let it polish me. They gave me pain. I gave it purpose, because here's the truth. Most people get hit, and they fall. I got hit, and I took notes. I paid attention to the sting, to the way it burned in my chest, to the places I was still too soft, too trusting, too eager to please. I studied the pain like a blueprint, and then I went into the shadows and rewrote myself from the inside out. Pain became my professor. Silence became my school. And isolation became my arena. I didn't post about it. I didn't vent. I didn't beg for sympathy. I trained harder, smarter, deeper. While they laughed, I was evolving. While they slept, I was sharpening. While they doubted me, I was becoming the one man they'd never be able to ignore again. Let me tell you something. There is no growth without grief. There is no power without pressure. There is no glory without isolation. The ones who cut you, they want you to stay broken. They want to believe they ended you. But if you can endure the pain without losing your principles, you become a different breed. The type who doesn't get loud. The type who doesn't need revenge. The type who walks into a room and the room changes. I turned heartbreak into fuel. I turned rejection into focus. I turned silence into strategy. And I trained until I no longer needed to defend myself, because the results spoke louder than I ever could. You want to know who's truly dangerous? Not the loud ones. Not the ones flexing their strength. The dangerous ones are quiet. They remember what you did, but they say nothing. They use the betrayal as blueprint. And when they return, they don't just come back better. They come back untouchable. I've been cut I've been underestimated. I've been disrespected by people who now pretend they didn't. But I don't carry bitterness. I carry precision, because every scar they gave me, I memorized it. And every time I bleed forward, not backward. I don't train to escape pain. I train so that nothing can stop me when it comes. So let them keep underestimating. Let them keep replacing you. Let them keep talking. But you sharpen. You build your body with repetition. You build your mind with silence. You build your future with the pieces they tried to break. And one day, they'll see you again and wonder how they ever thought you were ordinary. They didn't just cut me. They helped me become sharper than they'll ever be. They say I lost friends. I didn't. I lost distractions. I lost background noise. I lost people who stood beside me when it was easy, but never planned to stay when it got real. I used to think losing people was failure. I used to blame myself. What did I do wrong? Was I too distant? Too focused? But now I understand. I wasn't being abandoned. I was being aligned. Because when you start becoming who you're meant to be, everything not built for that version of you begins to fall away. And that includes people. I saw it happen slowly. Conversations started to feel shallow. I'd speak with vision. They'd reply with fear. I'd talk about growth. They'd talk about gossip. I stopped texting first. They never noticed. And that silence, it used to hurt. But eventually, it started to heal. Because I realized that if someone can disappear from your life without looking back, they were never really with you, just there for the comfort, the entertainment, the benefit of being near your fire without building one of their own. That's not friendship, that's a drainage system with a smile. So I let them go. Not with anger, with acceptance. I stopped trying to be understood. I stopped trying to explain my distance to people who were never trying to understand my depth. You don't owe people access to you just because they were part of an older chapter. Some people are bookmarks. They help you pause. They mark a moment. But they're not meant to write your future. I made peace with that. Because the truth is, real growth is often ugly. It's not pretty. It's not shareable. It's not Instagram worthy. It's quiet. It's personal. It's lonely. But it's necessary. When I stopped surrounding myself with distractions, I discovered how powerful I was without them. How sharp my instincts were. How deep my thoughts could go without being interrupted by approval seeking. I found myself doing things I used to delay. Waking up earlier, breathing slower, training harder, thinking clearer, and for the first time, I wasn't running on noise dash. I was running on intention. Letting people go didn't shrink me. It made space. Space for focus. Space for discipline. Space for divine alignment. Some people are with you only until you start winning differently. Until you start glowing differently. Until you stop needing them. That's when they vanish. Because they were never there for your soul. They were there for the version of you that kept them comfortable. But I'm not here to be comfortable. I'm here to be legendary. If you want to walk with me, walk. But if you need me to dim my light so you can shine, you're not walking with me. You're walking against me. So yes, I lost friends. But I also lost confusion, drama, doubt, second-guessing myself for the sake of being liked. Now I'm alone, but I'm focused. Now I'm distant, but I'm clear. Now I'm quiet, but I'm dangerous. Because the fewer people I carry, the faster I move. The quieter my world becomes, the louder my purpose speaks. And maybe that's what true growth is. Not adding more, but removing everything that's not aligned with who you're becoming. So don't cry for the people who left. Celebrate the version of you they were never strong enough to walk beside. You didn't lose friends. You lost distractions. And that's not a tragedy. It's your transformation. They thought I went silent because I had nothing left to say. They were wrong. I went silent because I had something real to build. The world moves fast. Everyone's racing to be heard, to be seen, to be remembered. But I learned something most people never will. The most powerful transformation doesn't happen while being watched. It happens when no one's looking. I disappeared, not to escape, but to extract the version of me that had been hiding behind noise for years. They kept talking. I kept training. They kept assuming. I kept sharpening. They thought I was out of the game, but I wasn't in a game at all. I was building a kingdom where no one could shake me again. I didn't announce my comeback. I didn't hint at it. Because I didn't need to warn them. I knew what I was becoming. And let me tell you this. When you rebuild your identity in silence, you don't return as the same man. You return as a force. I wasn't interested in applause anymore. I was interested in alignment, in legacy, in impact so deep it doesn't need to be loud to be felt. People kept waiting for the old me, but the old me was dead. I buried him during those long nights alone. When I faced every weakness I used to hide, my patience changed. My reactions changed, even my breathing changed. I no longer chased. I attracted. I no longer explained. I embodied. I stopped proving and I started being. I stopped needing company and I started walking like my presence was already complete. Let me say this again. This wasn't a comeback. This was a declaration. I returned with new rules. My standards were higher. My circle was smaller. My silence was louder. And my energy said everything I no longer had to. You see, the best part of exile is that when you return, no one sees what you've become. They see a face they recognize, but a soul they've never encountered before. A soul that doesn't react. A soul that doesn't explain. A soul that moves like a storm wearing stillness as armor. When I entered the room again, people felt it. They didn't know what had changed, but something in their gut told them, he's not someone you interrupt. He's not someone you underestimate. He's not here to entertain. He's here to redefine. That's what silence does. It kills the weak version of you and births the one who was buried under expectations for years. So no, I didn't come back to participate. I came back to dominate silently, and here's the final truth. A comeback says, please let me back in. A declaration says, I never needed the door in the first place. Because when you build yourself without the world's approval, you return like a flood no one can contain. And if you're still hidden right now, still unheard, unseen, underestimated, don't panic. You're not falling behind. You're sharpening in the shadows. And when your moment arrives, don't announce it. Just arrive like thunder. And let the world feel the weight of someone who doesn't need permission to be legendary.